Hey, welcome to Founders365. Today we have Jonathan Butler. He is founder of OutSauced Consultancy, and you'll see why I said sourced in that way in just a second. How are you doing, Jonathan? How are you today? Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, I'm good, Steven. Doing well. Thanks for having me. So looking forward to this. Yeah.
Cool. So first question, as always, is what do you do? What does OutSauced do?
What does outsourced do? Well, the sourced bit is rather is been the SOURCED. It is source as in, sort of tomato ketchup or whatever, the sort of source HP and all that sort of thing. Because basically, I'm a restaurant consultant. So that is that's my background. I've spent scarily nearly 30 years in the industry. I started when I was 14. As many do, as a sort of pot washer, and then kind of fell into the industry from then when at the restaurant I was working at, chef had walked out, and I just sort of started sort of helping out. And over the sort of months and years that followed, I worked my way up and trained as a chef, and then sort of followed that career, which wasn't kind of where I was expecting to sort of go, but I had a passion for food, passion for cooking, and yeah, 30 years later, I'm still nearly 30 years, I should say.
Yeah,
not
let's not sell the time before.
Yeah, not quite 44 yet. Got a few months to go, but yeah, it is. I've like many tried to get out of the industry, but it always drags you back. It's a great industry to be in. So so for the last 10 years, I've sort of been doing the OutSauced Consultancy, which is sort of restaurant and hospitality based business consultancy, put simply.
So you sold up 10 years ago in terms of your restaurants, right?
So prior to that, I worked in the industry, worked my way up. I went to university and did 2 sort of degrees in hotel and sort of hospitality based management sort of courses. And then back in 2000, 20 years ago, I went into business with my mum and dad, and we had a small hotel with a restaurant there. I had that business for sort of 2 or 3 years, built that up, and then we sold that, and we went into another restaurant. So over 10 years, we had sort of then another two sort of restaurants.
It sort of flows from there, one after the other.
Came out of those in sort of 2008, 2009. So
the crash.
Had a bit of a, sorry,
around where the crash happened, eh?
So well, prior to that, we got hit with floods. So in 2007, I'd spent 7 years obviously building up the restaurants. So we were very successful. We had a multi-million-pound turnover. We were making very good profits. And in July 2007, both the restaurants flooded in the space of 24 hours. Wow. So very good at crisis management. There's a lot of lessons that you learn when you go through that sort of experience, which I'm sure we'll come on to as we go through this interview. But so we came out of that, and I got the restaurants back open after a sort of 6 months or so, and then we'd obviously entered into the 2008. We were sort of headed into recession, and we were mid-market. So mid-market restaurants kind of always are the first to get hit. Like with many businesses, because if you're the high end, then obviously that takes a little bit longer, and obviously low end. In fact, actually, you find that through the recession, sort of low end hospitality businesses actually did quite well. So things like your sort of Domino's and those kind of restaurants or chains sort of actually thrived through the recession, because people still wanted to have the experience of being able to eat out or sort of have sort of food sort of bought in, but they couldn't afford necessarily the mid or high end market. So it's that, but it's always the mid market that gets the crunch first. And we were sort of starting
the £20 meal deal with Domino's is a lot easier to justify than going out to a restaurant and spending 40-50.
No, exactly. And like you say, for the higher end, obviously, where people can afford, sort of to spend £200-300 on a meal, they obviously, those people have got that disposable income, so they don't necessarily feel it straight away. They feel it a little bit further down the line. So
yeah. And when you left the physical restaurant game 10 years ago, was the consultancy a natural thing, or in your head were you like, right, I'm going to go do something else? I'm going to
completely. I was going to go and do something else. I wanted to, that's when I was trying to get out the trade. Really, I felt, maybe it's time for a new challenge. I was only, back then, let's say 10 years ago, I was only sort of 33. So I thought, I'm still, young enough to sort of maybe try something a little bit different. But the issue I found at that time was, obviously the market was flooded with, obviously people who'd been made redundant or whatever from, lost their jobs through the crash. 2009 was not a time to be starting to think I'm going to go for a career change. And I went for, sort of many kind of job interviews and sort of different kind of, scenarios, and it always sort of come up against similar sort of things. Well, we've got, you get down to the last handful of people, but there'd be somebody who's been doing a similar job for the last 8 or 10 years, and they're obviously going to get it over somebody who's completely novice to it, fresh to it, but had the enthusiasm. So I kind of realized maybe at that point I'd already reached that stage of being an entrepreneur where you become unemployable.
That whole unemployable entrepreneur is something I'm not sure we should be bragging about or we should be proud of sometimes.
It's a difficult one. Because at the time you just want to work, and obviously you've got to keep a roof over your head and everything else. And I was okay because obviously we'd sold businesses and stuff, so it wasn't that but I think for me it was, at that point I didn't necessarily want to sort of think I'm going to invest into another business or anything like that. It was, I just fancied I suppose a change of pace, and maybe, we talk about job security. Maybe there wasn't, maybe that's the wrong thing, because, I suppose I was looking for, something where, at the end of every month I actually get a regular paycheck, which I'd never had for a long time. And so, I suppose I was looking for that, but, actually, let's be honest, is there any such thing as job security? And so for me, it was, actually, doing what I do, is the route to go. So I kind of, fell into the consultancy, sort of work because I had many contacts from the industry, and people would sort of, oh, John, what are you up to? Can you come and help me out with this? And I did, and I started to, realize, actually I can get paid for doing stuff that I enjoy. So that's kind of where
strip away all the stuff you don't enjoy, keep the stuff you do enjoy, and then build on that. So in terms of the outsourced consultancy, restaurant consultancy, what is it you focus on when you're working in restaurants? What is the typical thing you're seeing at the moment?
I think a lot of it is, businesses just, needing sort of guidance and help to sort of create, a more efficient business. Look at, the consistency of what they're producing. I do a lot around sort of customer sort of service and experience. That's kind of my passion. So I kind of look more at the operational side of it. So I can look at an overall view of a business, and I understand the financials and that kind of aspect, and I from that I can sort of start to piece together where they are. But a lot of it comes down to looking at the operational efficiency, processes that they've got in place, how to improve those, and then it's kind of starting to build up out of that. So we can work through, obviously what is the end goal? Where do they want the business to be? And that depends on, I've worked with clients who have just bought a business or starting up and are going through that process. So it's putting everything in place, or they might be further down the line, and maybe they've had a good run for a few years, and things have sort of started to either plateau or drop down slightly. It's, they need to obviously refresh and keep going. So again, there's different challenges there. I worked with a client last year who was a little bit stuck in his business. He was had a good turnover. He had a great business. He made a decent profit at the end of the year, but he was there working in it sort of 5, 6, 7 days a week, and it was like, how do I get out of this? And so we worked through a strategy. In fact, actually, I met up with him just before Christmas, just a little sort of catch up, and he said actually, John, you've improved my business, you've increased my turnover. I'm actually working here, just as he's now gets his kind of 2 or 3 days off a week, but he said I've not reached the goal that we originally set, but in working through what I've done with you, in fact, actually, business has improved sort of really well. You've kind of been counterproductive in a way that you've increased my business, but again, he's now in a position that he's now looking at another business this year, so he's looking at sort of growing in that respect. So so it's quite interesting, when you sort of get these challenges and sort of where they go. But and then yes, I've got clients who so where we go through the whole sort of 360 process of creating the concept and then going all the way to the end and delivering it.
What's the bit you enjoy? What's the bit you enjoy most out of everything you do?
I enjoy most. I think it's sort of
the service aspect.
Yeah, I think it's just seeing the engagement when you actually start to work. Certainly when I work with sort of management teams, leadership sort of teams, and you sort of start to see them sort of getting it and sort of going, actually there's better ways to work. And just putting those improvements and then seeing the end results, is always for me. I'm passionate about helping people make their businesses successful.
What's really interesting that I think a lot of people don't realize, and what you touched on a second ago with that client, is he may have not reached his goal that he set out when they first started with you, but quite often, especially with the work I do, it's quite similar to you. That the goals that they set out the first are so different by the time that the work is finished with you or with me over that process, because so much has changed. Like you effectively set things up so he has 2-3 more days of his life per week, and of course his things will change, of course everything else changes because of that.
No, it would definitely, and I see that all the time. I think when your first goal, it's almost that. Well, that's what you want at that point, because I suppose you don't know if there's anything else that you can have due to the situation that you're in. So, and I think that's it's quite important with anything in life. I think that we, you got to go through the process of reassessing, quite regularly. Actually, are the goals that we just entered a new decade, just entered a new year, and everybody's probably written down the goals for this year. But and that's great to have that 12-month goal or even a 5-year or 10-year goal now. But I'd say review that in 3 months, because it might change. Because 3 months into the year, your 12-month goal, you might be thinking, actually, do you know what? I don't actually want that now. I want this, because things can change quite rapidly, or your direction can alter. So a bit like with me, if I go back to sort of June 2007, when we just refurbished our one of our restaurants, just spent £250,000 refurbishing that, and my goal there was we were actually looking for another restaurant, so we were going to buy a third one. 4 weeks later, that goal had changed. And it was a very, very rapid things, you never know what's around the corner. But
you've got to be adapted to that. You've got to be so adapted, because you could have had a choice back in 2007 to be, your world could have ended, which I'm sure it did a little bit. But you chose to go, let's fix this, let's get back on our feet. And then probably goals changed again when you had the 6 months reopening night. And it's
without a doubt, you can have your sort of pity party. You can have your little 5 minute sob in the corner, but straight away, in a situation like that, and it's quite surreal at the time, so the sort of the first restaurant flooded on the Friday sort of afternoon, and the second restaurant flooded on the Saturday, and it's a sort of situation where like you say, I could have I could have slipped my wrist there and then and thrown myself into the River Severn because it was literally coming through, the business. And like I say, that could have been out. I said, that's it. I've got my excuse and this and the other, and we're done.
Yeah.
But you've then got to think back. Well, I had 50 or 60 employees at the time. It's not just my livelihood; it's their livelihood. That it's their jobs and stuff like that. You've got to start to work your way. Think actually, I've got to be there for them. You've got to then, don't get wrong, you've got to then be a little bit selfish as well, because at the end of the day, I had a family and everything else, and I've got to provide for them. So it's almost that kind of scenario of, I've got to get myself kind of fitted with the oxygen mask or whatever. If you're sort of taking the sort of airplane scenario, sort yourself out first before you can sort out others. So you kind of have to do that a little bit, but you've got to put things into perspective and say, and I think it changed a lot of my perspective on business and where I where I am now to where I was back then, and like I say, so I reevaluated everything in my life over, not obviously immediately, but over the coming months and years, now I've got a very different perspective on where business can go and everything else to what I did sort of 10 years or so ago.
Oh, exactly. One of my questions was going to be, what's the biggest difference that you have in the sense of running a bricks and mortar business, especially a restaurant, versus what you do now, which, much more freedom from what we were chatting about before, all these other elements. What's the biggest difference that you have found in that journey?
The biggest thing I find is that it's the quantifying of it, I suppose. When you've got a like say a restaurant and it's turning over whatever it might be, $500,000, $1 million, 1.5 million or whatever, and it's so you've got employees, it's that product that you're creating, and you've got it, it's all tangible, and it's you can see it, you can feel it, you can touch it, and everything.
You can see the customers coming in, you can see the drinks being sold.
Exactly, and you can and you can monitor it daily, day to day. Obviously these days you can monitor it by the the minute, the hour. It's absolutely phenomenal, and you can do it from anywhere in the world. It's great. And I suppose the difference between that and what I do now is, and this is where it's sometimes very difficult to sort of get that, how do you get it across and in the messaging and stuff, which is, obviously what I do now, people are paying me for, my expertise, my knowledge, and that's sometimes very difficult to quantify. And, it was interesting. I was having, I saw somebody put a book, it was about a marketing book. I can't remember the name of it now, but it was like, but I think the price of the book was something like $150, and you think for a book, but actually it's the content. Then I thought back, well, actually my book, you could buy my book, read my book, and from that, you could make changes to your business that could make you a lot of money. And I'm thinking, well,
business recipes for success available on Amazon now.
Yeah, thanks for the plug. But it's like whatever it is, 11. I can't remember how much to sell it for now. It's probably whatever, 10 or 11 pounds, and it's like, but then, but then obviously when somebody comes to me, and it's like, and it's how do you quantify that sort of knowledge? But and I think sometimes people struggle with that from a point of view of being, to buy your services, and it's. I think that can sometimes be the hardest part of it. Somebody phones up, they ask advice, you give them some advice, and it's like, we want you to come and work with us, and you give them a price, and they're like, okay. You never hear from them again, and you're like, oh.
Or they do it the other way, and they say, okay, too quickly. So then you go, oh, am I too cheap?
Oh. Yeah, well, no, exactly. That's the thing. It's sort of, but I think if you, over the years, obviously things have gone, but to be honest, in the early days, I probably was too cheap, and I just wanted to, sort of, I suppose, trial things and everything else. But now a lot more consistent. And I think, the way I look at it now is that, if they want to turn the business around, or they want to make a difference to the business, then you've got to invest, and it is an investment. It's not a cost, and as long as I can demonstrate that value back to my clients, which quite clearly I do, because I have clients that come back to me, and obviously they tell me so, and everything else, which is great. and you know, when they're paying you month on month, you know, you've got to be doing something right. So
and because they're mainly restaurants, it also, I'm guessing, makes the work with you a little bit more quantifiable success, because it tallies back to the whole, oh, they can see the numbers improving, they can see XYZ happening.
Yeah, sometimes it takes, you know, a bit of time, you know, quite obviously, and sometimes the changes that you're making aren't necessarily, you know, again, that's sometimes, I suppose, the difficulty. You know, if I said to somebody, I'll come in and I'll do a, you know, customer service workshop, or you know, sort of talk about, you know, customer experience and everything else, and I can go in and do that. You know, that's quite difficult to quantify. You know, if I said, right, you know, X amount of money for me to come and do that. But, you know, to give you an example, I've had clients in the past where I've done that for them, and then I've been speaking to them, and, you know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, and they said, oh, you know, this, you know, and this employee went and did this, and I didn't ask them to do it, and they just did it, and it's had a really good impact. And it's like, well, that's what, you know, that came back to that, you know. Yeah, because if you start to plant that seed and everything else, and they you know, it's I suppose it's how you quantify it. You know, do you quantify it always by, you know, the sort of financial return on investment, or, you know, is there the other, you know, there's lots of other ways that you can sort of, you know, see the return on the investment, which is, you know, let's say even, you know, we talk about improving, you know, sort of productivity or efficiency, you know, that can be a great way to, sort of hit the bottom line, but it takes a bit of time. You know, if you've got, you know, say every shift you put in 4 or 5 people on a shift, and it's like, well, okay, if we improve the systems, if we improve the efficiency and the productivity, maybe you don't need 5 people on every shift, you can drop that to 4, you know, and then maybe over time you might be able to drop that to 3.5, you know. And I know 3.5 suddenly becomes handy, you have half person, but obviously it depends how you can then alter the sort of shift patterns, or, you know, you don't have to have them in for 6 hours, they can come in, you know, like chefs can come in half an hour later, or just 50, even if it's just 15 minutes a day later, because they're more efficient on their prep, or the way that they put things together, or the ordering systems are more efficient. So there's lots that you can sort of start to look at in a business that starts to go, well, actually, if we do this over here, it actually impacts over there. And that's when, you know, it really starts to make the domino huge difference. And it's just those little tweaks sometimes, and then going back and constantly, you know, tweak it. I'm a massive fan of Formula One. And what I love about Formula One is that they're just constantly, you know, the car they launch at the start of the year isn't the car they've got at the end of the year, you know. And it could just be, you know, an additional bolt here, or you know, feedback, isn't it? It's all constantly, you know, evaluating information all the time, and seeing how do we, you know, how can we make that better? How, you know, I use the phrase of what went well, you know, even better if. Yeah, exactly. And do it. You know, I think lots of people have this information that they're being told in terms of the changes and alterations, and there's often a big gap between them actioning upon that change. Definitely. So, you know, Formula One's a great example. For them to win, or, you know, get close to winning, because we all know there's a couple of people that always just win. It's not what it used to be. It's not what it used to be. But for them to get close to that, you know, top 3 spot, they have to implement that feedback that they're getting from the cars and from the racetracks and from the drivers and from the pit crew. Every single entity in that business has a rule of feedback, which I think is super important in terms of what, you know, coaching and consulting and everything, because without that, then who knows what's going on. What has been, they're doing it all the time. The fact is, with them, they're doing it. It's even, you know, even during a race, they are doing it. And you can, you know, you can do that, you know, even running a business. You know, if things, you know, I speak to clients sometimes that they, you know, they sort of contact saying, oh, you know, I'm running this, and my business generally is doing okay, but on one guy, he's on a Sunday, he said every Sunday, it's our busiest day of the week, Sunday lunch. But by 1:30 every single Sunday, we are in the shit, you know. And it's every single week. So, John, you know, we can almost time it. And it's like, and I said, okay. So you know, you've got to start to sort of read back, you know, and even, you know, during that shift, you've got to start to when you start to see the cracks appearing, you've got to be reacting, at all, and things are obviously going to change each week. There's going to be different customers, different things that are sort of affect you. So you've got, it's having those sort of processes that you can do, even during a shift, during a period of time, a service, or whatever it might be. You've got to be able to say, actually, no, we need to, switch to this system or that system, whatever will work best at that point.
You touched upon this earlier, but how has technology changed how people can run their restaurants and their hospitality type businesses?
Well, there's loads of technology now that you can implement, and not all of it is purely restaurant related. Obviously, we've had kind of EPOS systems, sort of electronic till systems for a long time.
Yeah.
But they've got more advanced, and they're more, let's say now you can even get all the data down to your phone and things like that. And, so there's all that kind of thing, but it's using that information correctly, not just sort of, you've got to be, there's a lot of information that can be, sort of gathered, and I suppose you can get overwhelmed with that. So it's knowing what information is going to be most effective for your business. But beyond that, now there's obviously, things that are kind of obviously, you've got customer kind of feedback, whether it be TripAdvisor or Facebook or whatever, again, there's also even now systems that you can, again, can be almost live feedback on, individual dishes on your menu, as the customer's paying. There's now technology that it's used in a lot of sort of quick service restaurants, or QSR type restaurants. So I think they're things like your chain type restaurants, so your TGIs and all those sort of things, where obviously from the till you put the order in the till and it goes through to the kitchen, and then the software puts onto screens around the kitchen dependent on the section. So starters will go to the starter section, main courses go over to the main course section, but then it also tells the chefs when they need to start working on that dish. So so you drop the whatever it might be, if it's in a TGI, it might be you put your sort of chicken wings in the fryer for the starters, and then when they get sent out, the chef presses the button and it then tells the chef over on the main courses that they need to put the steaks on or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of technology that can be used, and depending on the type of restaurant you are and the size, that will depend. But there's huge amounts. But obviously, I think in terms of the biggest technology that's impacted restaurants for me is obviously things like social media, your Facebooks, your Instagrams, and stuff like that, which is very, very effective for restaurants if again used properly. Because what you got to remember now in a restaurant, you're serving a table of 4 people. You're not. You're now serving a table of 4 people and all their friends, all their followers. And I'm not a fan of influencers. If we're going to get onto that one, I think because the thing is that you don't know who their friends are, where they are, and everything else. I'm a fan of serving the people who are in front of you. At the end of the day, if they're going to then, if you give them a great experience, they're going to pop it on their social media anyway. And then the ones who are local will probably come and try you as well, which is great, but you're creating experiences that go beyond your 4 walls. Your 4 walls are very important, but you've got to think of the bigger picture. See, within my book, I talk about I have a sort of system I call FEED, which is feeling, environment, experience, and development.
I wonder why you called it FEED.
Feed, I wonder why. I know, I'm great on it. Outsourced and feed.
How do you come up with this stuff?
I know.
It's
gold, isn't it? Absolute gold. But so the and the feeling is obviously, because then anywhere you go, and it can be any business, but you go into a business and you it creates feelings. We've all done it. You sit outside a place and go, that looks like a great place to eat.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you look at a menu and go, oh, that sounds nice, but it's the emotional connection that you're getting. You look at a plate, so everything interlinks. So it's the feeling links to the environment, the emotion, the that kind of thing that you're getting from the branding, the marketing, the service, the people. Ultimately we're aiming towards the experience, which is sort of the in there, and then beyond that it's the development. So it's how do you constantly look to improve the systems, the operations, the management, the your long-term strategy, your growth, and everything else.
What would you say has been some of the biggest changes in the restaurant industry? I did pre-frame this with John. I was going to bring up the Jamie Oliver thing, like from an empire, or however we want to call it, to zero, basically, in terms of physical restaurants, not in terms, Jamie Oliver is a very smart businessman.
His brand and wealth is phenomenal, and he, I think the industry's gone through massive. We went through a boom period, and I've touched on this within my podcast when I've interviewed people like Ajif Jarrett Raymer, who he set up Las Iguanas, and then he also set up Turtle Bay Restaurants, so he's the founder of Turtle Bay Restaurant. And Turtle Bay Restaurants are quite interesting because they buck the trend of everybody else. They are continuing to grow and be very, very successful. But I think you go back with any of them, whether it be Jamie Oliver, whether it be all these different chains. Well, first of all, he entered a sector that was saturated, the Italian market. Good old Italian boy from Essex. So all them roots. And
my mash shop chain. That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah. No, I'm not from Essex. I don't know what they eat, but he he entered a saturated market. The Italian market is very, very saturated, and if you actually look at the chains that struggle, there's a lot of them come from Carluccio, Pizza Express, and Prezzo, all Italian based chains. So I think, but they went through rapid growth, and then they took on, in my mind, this is a very simplistic breakdown. They took on the wrong. It was all, almost business sense went out of the window, and it was like, we need a site there, we need a site there, we need a site there, and they just bought, took on sites that were not necessarily financially viable. When you're just taking on sites, I think, I don't know exactly, but some sites that these places had ridiculous rents and rates, and they were huge sites, and what obviously with any business, when you go through a growth period, you need, you've got to be sensible about it, and every single place that you go, you should do a proper business case review, feasibility study, and everything else. There's no point in just going, Pizza Express have got a site there, let's open one next door because we'll be successful because Pizza Express, it's a different offering. You might be in the same marketplace, but you've got a different offer. So you've got to look at what's successful. If you start a chain that appeals to, university students, you're not going to go and open a site where there's no university students. You've got to look at everything and be sensible about it. And I think that's where a lot of these, we talked about all the issues that happen, in the last sort of couple of years. And I wrote actually an article that went a bit viral on LinkedIn. I think it was 46,000 reads. I got some good and bad reviews, as all these sort of things do. It was a little bit controversial, but it was just a very simplistic view of saying, that you can't over egg it. If you overstretch yourselves, whether it's through borrowing or say the wrong sites, and then it's putting all the processes in place. Expanding a restaurant chain is not easy. And the key to success in the industry is consistency. There's not really much else to it, if I'm honest. If you can deliver, because what we look for when we, we're creatures of habit, and we go, and the reason why we love places like Premier Inn and Travelodge is because you go to a Premier Inn or Travelodge, whichever, you can wake up in a Premier Inn or Travelodge and be anywhere in the world, and it's you wouldn't know what city you're in, it's because we like that comfort. We're sort of creatures of habit, by human nature, really. So it's looking for that consistency. So what we want, if we go into a Jamie Oliver restaurant in central London, and then we go into a Jamie Oliver restaurant in Oxford, we want it to be the same, because what we're going is, we went to that one in London, it was really good. So if we go there, it's going to be okay, because then we're going to part with our hard-earned cash. We're always a little bit more dubious to try something new. So it's that, and so they, I think they were very inconsistent, wrong site selection. And then the other thing is they didn't evolve. They didn't, again, you've got to constantly evolve your offering.
Sure.
And you've got to stay relevant.
Yeah.
Is it Jamie Oliver? I don't think putting burgers in an Italian restaurant was really the right move as well, but that's another thing. Anyway, that's just on Jamie. But no, the industry has struggled, and obviously another part of that is comes down to sort of availability of staff and the kind of viewpoint on the industry being low paid, and sort of poor working conditions and everything else, and that's got to change.
And is it changing, do you think? Can you see
slowly
change?
Slowly but surely? Yeah, I think it's still difficult. I think again, if I was going to be quite controversial,
do it.
I think customers have got to be prepared to pay more.
Yeah.
If we want to go out and enjoy these sort of experiences and have that those sort of quality meals and everything else, you've got to be prepared to pay for it.
Yeah.
Because you've got to look at the makeup of the food on the plate, the staff costs, the running costs of the business and everything. There's a lot of things that go into getting that plate of food to you on the table. And so I think that is really important. And obviously there's now other challenges in the industry, with the delivery companies, Deliveroo, Uber, etc., which are going to be a very big problem.
So second to last question for you, what can you foresee happening in the next couple of years in terms of the restaurant industry? Like you just mentioned it, Uber Eats, Deliveroo have caused a huge change in it in the last couple of years in terms of how I think the customer consumes food. So what's next?
I think restaurants have got to up the game. I think they've got to focus on getting people through the door. At the end of the day, it comes down to experiences. We want the thing is that do you want to sit at home on the sofa and eat something delivered by a Deliveroo cyclist who really doesn't care about the state of the food that it gets to you in, and that that to me is not a great experience. I don't it's not something that I go, that's what I want to do on a Friday, Saturday night. I'd rather go, I want to go out, sit in the restaurant and experience how that food should be. Delivered with great customer service, delivered with passion and everything else. And that's restaurants have got to get back to doing what they do best. And you've almost got to I'm not a you might have gathered already, I'm not a fan of Deliveroo or Uber Eats or anything else, because to me it doesn't define what eating out is. I think they provide a service, and I actually think they are moving towards that. They will move away from actually having restaurant brands on their books almost. I think that their model is that they will do it all themselves. So you will order.
They already do that now. They've got delivery.
A lot of them do, a lot of them do. That because a lot of chains or a lot of businesses started coming off them because they can't. The charge, the percentages that they're charging is huge. I mean, it's I know restaurants that lose money every single time they send out a Deliveroo order.
Crazy.
And that's no way to run the business. So you've got, restaurants have got to get back to and focus and say, look, actually, if you want to eat at our restaurant, come in and if we don't, then like I say, you're going to start to see these more businesses go. And I think that would be a great change, because we want to go out and enjoy great experiences. Other things that are happening now is the social kind of entertainment side of business. So, you've got things like Flight Club Darts and swingers, so the sort of golf and putt shack and all these sort of things. So it's where you go and have a, not just food, but also a sort of social experience as well. So it's kind of, how do you bring that into the, into that restaurant environment? Do
you now struggle, because of everything you've done in the last 20 odd years, to have a night out in a restaurant without thinking about how it can be run better? I could just
my friends take bets on how quickly it is before I complain. No, I get, it's not easy. You're always looking, I wish they wouldn't do this. I wish they wouldn't do that.
Leave your business card on the table.
I have done that before now, or if as I've checked out of a hotel, I've given them a copy of my book and say, there you go. Wasn't so great. Of course it's not easy, but let's say my passion is, it's not always about me wanting business. It's about, my passion is, I want to go and have a great experience at a restaurant, and I want them to be successful. I don't care, I can't help every single restaurant. No. That's kind of one of the reasons why I wrote the book, so at least people can read about it and hopefully improve. And I'm writing another book at the moment, so hopefully we'll be out this year. But again, that's about customer experience, customer, sort of service. And if people can just improve from reading my books or anything that I put out, into the sort of ether, as it were, then hopefully, that to me is success. I don't have to get paid for everything I do.
No.
So, because to me it's passion. I've been in this industry for, let's say, nearly 30 years. I'm just passionate about helping businesses be successful, restaurants, be really good at what they do. And it's the little things that kind of annoy me more than the big things. If they really fuck it up, as it were. You don't mind me swearing, but I am a chef. Chef by trade. If they really fuck it up, you can kind of forgive them sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes the little attentions to details that actually will annoy me more. So you go in somewhere and the toilets are dirty, or just little things that get missed.
It is those little things that get on top of you, because they're normally so easy to fix as well, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's just common sense. And I've even said that to some people sometimes. I think, just do this.
Yeah.
That would have completely changed the whole experience. And these little things, dirty cutlery or dirty glasses and things like that are, tables not being cleared quickly enough, or whatever it might be. It's just those are, if somebody comes to me and says, we're really sorry, we've completely messed up your meal, and we're going to have to start again from fresh, you've got another half-hour wait or whatever, I'll be like, yeah, fine, not a problem. We're having a great time. We're talking. Decide, we'll give you a round of drinks while you wait. Fine. Yeah.
Imagine your family like, oh, John, not again. Don't just leave.
No, it's a nightmare. No, I but to be fair, a lot of the times now, I do just bite my lip or whatever, and service charge is normally the one that they always sort of, John, you're not going to ask for it to be taken off again, are you? And I'll be like, yep. I don't like paying a service charge. I disagree with that concept wholly. But again, I wrote a blog on that, so you can read about that one.
I feel like I've gone deep into this. I don't want to open a can of worms.
No, you will.
My final question that I ask every guest is: what are 3 things that maybe if someone owns a restaurant or is in the hospitality industry, that they can be doing to better their business?
Well, I think we touched on quite a few of them. Obviously, it's a big focus, and it's not just for hospitality businesses. To me, any business, your number one in delivering a better business is your team.
Mm-hmm.
It's your employees. So it's you focus on them rather than customers. And we always focus with business. We always sort of focus on how do we get more customers?
Yeah.
Well, how do you get more customers is actually improve your customer experience, improve your customer service, and you do that by focusing on your team. Look after number one, as it were. So they are your priority. And if and it's not always about paying them more money. It's about just train them better, or give them opportunities to improve themselves, and and then just thank them for doing a great job sometimes. But you know, really work with your team. They're normally the ones with the answers, you know, and they're the ones on the front line. They're the ones who are taking the hits, as it were, when things do go wrong. So if you have problems or you have issues, they're the ones normally who've got the answers. I'll be honest, when I go in, and sometimes I feel a bit embarrassed sometimes when I do it, you go in and you sort of doing a business review or whatever, and obviously I'll talk to the owner and they'll give me their viewpoint and everything else. I say, right, now I want to talk to people in here, and I'll talk to anybody, whether it be the cleaner who comes in twice a week and just cleans the toilets, to people who are full-time management or whatever, and I go through every aspect of the business, and I'll ask them some of the questions. Sometimes I go, oh, well, my job would be made easier if I had this, or if we actually did this, I know more people would come in, because I talk to my friends, and they tell me the reason we don't come into your business is because of this or whatever it might be. And so it's sometimes as simple as that, and then I write a report and it's just what their team have told me. It's like, there you go. And it's so focus on them, because believe me, if you look after your employees, they will look after your business, because if you can turn around and make sure they understand where you want your business to go. So it's giving them, tell them what your goals are, tell them what you want to do, and don't be afraid to say, do you know what, I want my business to make more money. Because a lot of us are afraid sometimes that, we as business owners shouldn't be saying to our staff or, employees that we actually make money, but actually it's a good thing, because you can then say to them, well, look, if I make more money, then I can improve your working conditions. I might be able to pay you more. Believe me, that's going to be a stronger motivator than saying, can we just get another 10 customers through the door? So that's that to me is where if you want it, and that's any business, whether you're retail, manufacturing, whatever, focus on the people you've got in there every single day, and they'll drive your business forward.
I think that's customer is key, isn't it? It's like you said, going back to that old age saying, I think we can often be forgotten about now because of social media, and I've got to make sure I've got a great TripAdvisor review, or tag us on Facebook. So actually, no, like, did you have a good time? What could we have done better? All these different answers. And like you said, any business, if you've got staff, they know way more about your business than you sometimes. It's crazy.
It can be quite frightening. I'm saying it's not always the management that know. It can be, like you say, the 15-year-old waitress who's only there, twice a week.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone knows something.
Precisely, because they're the ones that say, and it might be sometimes just little things. I would say, well, we run out of cutlery. Right, well then go and buy more bloody cutlery. It's just, whatever that, to say, this can sometimes be it. It's just like, you've got to look at what are the things that are going wrong, or the dishwasher, doesn't clean properly, so we have to put it through twice. Or, actually, if you spent the money buying a new dishwasher, whatever it might be, there's loads. Sometimes it's just so bizarre that why haven't you done that? So we've, like I say, it can be just sometimes even the way you lay out the tables, actually move the tables around a little bit more, and it improves the flow of the restaurant, or, so with any business, it can be, these sort of little things that will make a huge difference. It's just taking a step back, being a bit more open-minded, and looking at the whole picture. But it's not all, obviously customers, I appreciate, very, very important to your business. You need to have them. But you've got to realise, it's looking after those customers that is actually the thing that's going to keep them coming back, because it is a more competitive world. And if you look at retail at the moment, that is really, really struggling, why don't we go to the high street? Well, there's a number of factors why we don't go to the high street. One of it is actually when you go into stores these days, you don't get customer service. You can walk around the store and not, you ask for something or whatever it might be, and they don't know where it is.
So the amount of times I've walked into a shop, and if I need something, I have to go and find the staff. I have to go and seek them out.
And you don't want that. Whereas, you Google it, and, it comes, click a couple of clicks, and it's in your thing, and then your delivery driver's there next day. That's that is why the high street is struggling. It's, they can say, it's because we're paying too high rents and this, that, and the other. And I understand, yes, there is that aspect of it, but you've got to go And there's other factors, that some are beyond their control, but again, it's this, you've got to look at the wider picture and say, well, how actually do we, improve that? But if you looked after your staff more, if you improved that, they would probably say to you, well, actually, if we did this, we will get more customers through the door. If we were able to improve the way we deliver our product, on the shop floor, then that would make a difference.
Exactly. Listen, John, I've really enjoyed having you on. I feel like we could talk for hours about this and maybe we'll do that, because I want to do some really long ones in the future as well. So maybe we'll get you back on and do some real deep diving into why you shouldn't pay service charge and things like that. If anyone's listening or watching and wants to chat with you further, how can they best get in contact with you?
Well, obviously, my website, so it's www.outsaucedconsultancy.co.uk, and it's outsourced at OUTSAUCED. So consultancy.co.uk. I'm on LinkedIn, so just find me on LinkedIn, John C. Butler. And I am on Twitter, but I don't really do much on Twitter. Or say drop me an email or whatever. But yeah, say if there's anything, if you go to my website and you can get sort of and lots of stuff on there.
Audio book, right?
What's that, sorry?
An audio book, yeah.
I think there's a link through to Amazon. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Actually, it's a long time since I've looked at it, but yeah, there's.
Don't say that. We're live. No, thank you so much for John for coming on. This has been Founders365. I've been Steven Haggerty, and this has been episode 14.